Hi guys, it's Claire's and welcome to another video tutorial with me. We are continuing on in our watercolor scenic video tutorials. So you guys are painting along with me, learning along with me, because most of you guys know it is not typically scenery that I do. I do mostly loose watercolor flowers. So we are continuing on in August because August was dedicated or is dedicated for scenic views. And today we are going to tackle something along the lines of this right here that I have roughly painted. I was trying to get this nice, calming, colorful sky because I love color, and added some of my favorites, loose tulips on the forefront. So we are going to be painting this. Hope you guys are excited. I'm just going to walk you through my list of products really quickly. For today, I am going to be using a special line of brushes. These are the eco-friendly ZenART supplies brushes. They are part of they come as a pack, and I believe it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 of them, and they're called the Black Tulip collection. But I'm just going to be using 4 of them today. I'll be using the flat. You've probably seen me use some of these in my other videos. So I'm using the flat, using the number 2 rigger, which really is helpful for scenic views, number 10 round, and then the number 8 round. I love that they have a really nice pointed tip, so if I ever really need to go in and get something really fine and detailed, I can use these, or the rigger, right? All right, so those are brushes. I have my palette by Lisi Arts from Instagram, and I am finally excited to be using my brand new set of watercolors by, well, White Nights. These are my White Nights, and this is the new set that I have. It is, I believe, what, 36, yeah. So I've got way more red in here, so I'm excited to be using that in today's painting. So let's begin. All right, so we're ready to begin. I've got my water off to the side at the top here. I'm just going to keep that off screen. You guys can see my color. I've got my Canson watercolor paper with masking fluid along the edges, so I get a nice white border, just like I've been doing my other scenic views. And we are ready to begin mixing colors. So the colors I'm going to be using for this particular tulip field is going to be a combination of oranges, purples, pinks, and some greens. So we're going to start off by using we're going to mix a little bit of the Titan Red, and I'm mixing that off to the side. And then I also I'm using my number 10 round brush, and then I'm going to get some of the Golden Deep and mix that off to the side as well. Washing off most of the color because now I want to get some of my cadmium medium and mix some of that in here with the Golden Deep. And then we're also going to get a little bit of the Carmine or Ruby, either one of them. We just want a nice hint of pink. So I'm going to use the number 8 this time and get a little bit of the Carmine, I think. And I'm mixing that off here. I'm going to actually get a swipe of Ruby as well and just mix that in with the Carmine. And I want this to be very diluted because we're going to start off with the orange and we're going to kind of fade off with the pink bit that we have mixed. And then I also want some violet, and this 36 set comes with like a really nice violet and a quin lilac, so I think I'll get a little bit of the violet on here, and I'm going to get some of that quin lilac, mix that in there, give us like a more muted version of the violet. Perfect. So these 3 combinations really typically. So putting my brush aside, we're going to start off by dampening the area at the top. And so I'm using the flat brush to get some color down. I have some of my orange on my number 10 already. Oh, actually, before we begin, really quickly, we just need to make sure we know where our horizon is. So I'm just going to make sure, holding my brushes properly, and do a quick, let's do it about here, a little bit more than half. And then I want to see the area where my bigger blooms are going to be on the forefront. So I'm just going to mark up to probably like this area here. So I've got, this is where we're going to do our nice bigger tulips, and then that's going to be the background. All right, perfect. Now we're good. We're ready. We're going to begin. So I'm just going to rest one brush from my hand and start dampening this area here. And we're going to start dampening the top first, lay some color down, and then get in some more water. Okay, so I got that dampened. I'm going to get some of my dark orange here, the Titan red, I believe. It's getting a bit more, and I'm just going to very quickly add in these strokes. Getting some more, I'm just adding a little bit more. And while this is still damp, I'm just going to get some and just add a bit. Now you notice I'm just like really like dabbing at it, and that is what I want to do so that I can get a nice, not a linear per se effect, but more of a dotted effect. So there's a nice blend, and now I went in for some of that golden, and I'm just adding that in there. Again, I'm just dotting it in. Perfect. And actually, just to kind of get a little bit of a variant of the darker orange, we're just going to add some on this end here as well. And then take some of that yellow, mix it in with what we have left, and just add in a little bit of that at the bottom. So we've got these beautiful hues transcending from the heavens, just going downward, doing its thing. Now I'm washing off that brush, putting it down aside, and I'm continuing on with my lay of water. And you can see the transition that it gives. Might even get a little bit of some linear strokes getting in from the top, just to kind of get some movement in the sky a little bit. And I'm just using the side of the brush, really. Just brushing it around. Perfect. And now I'm going to get some of that pink. Actually, this had some of that purple, so I'm going to get some of that either Quin Rose, Carmine, or Ruby, and I am adding it just like that because we've got it perfectly damp. It is the right consistency. I want it to be super light, and we're just going down using that all the way down to that horizon line for us. And now once I have that, I'm going to get some of that yellow, cadmium yellow, and I just want to add it in between the pinks, so it looks like it doesn't just go like a hard gradient, like a hard change, but there's hints of that yellow in the sky. And that's exactly what I want. I'm just kind of trying to smoothen out some of these lines that we have happening. This is the perfect time to kind of play around with your color. Just allow it to be allow the watercolor to do its stuff, because it's perfect. Yeah, perfect. I love that sky. We're going to go ahead, get a little bit more of that yellow, and I just want a little bit more of it just kind of hovering above the area where it just kind of goes into our horizon. Get some more of that pink in there too. So there's a lot of like blending happening at this point, and so relax and enjoy the views as the watercolor just kind of blends in and does its thing. So we've done that bit. The next thing we're going to do is taking the rigger. I'm going to get some of the purple, and I want to add some of that purple in just along the horizon, just like that. And you'll see why, because at some point we're going to mix some of this purple with the green, and I want to get a nice like a purpley green happening in the horizon, so then in the end they kind of tie in well. I'm going to get some of the chromium oxide green and mix it a little bit with the purple on my palette, and then just kind of throw that in there, because now that this area is damp, I want to have a nice transition or fade with the green. So I'm getting my rigger, and the rigger is perfect for these loose little strokes, as you can see that I'm adding in. Another thing you can do is just add in some, might be too late actually, add in some of these splatters. Maybe even sprinkle some salt, guys. It's up to you. I'll leave that up to you. But I'm just going to go back to my horizon and just make sure that it is nice and dark, so you can totally see this is where it separates. And making it green with like hues of the purple happening in there. And then I'm going to give it some dabbing. Give it some dabbing. Yes, that totally makes sense, because I'm trying to make it seem like trees are in the background. And I want it to be very faded. So again, mixing it with that purple. It is damp. It's the perfect kind of consistency right now to get in some background shrubbery or greenery happening. And we've got a beautiful blend of purple into the sky as well. And we could even go just a bit darker at the bottom here, so adding some of that chromium oxide green to my purple to get a nice dark green, and just kind of dabbing away, maybe a couple of dots off to the side so it kind of blends in with that pink. And we are pretty much done this part, and now we can kind of move on to doing the field bit. So I'm going to move this up and we're going to start. Okay, so this bit gets a tad bit tricky, because what we're going to do is we're going to do the background for the field and then the foreground. So what I would suggest is starting off with the background and adding that continued essence of pink, the very, very light pink. So again, we're going to bring in our flat brush and dampen it. I'm just going to take the leftover pinky purple that we have here, and I'm just going to start dampening it right around this area here. And just need some more water. And then once we have that, go in with the number 10, get some of that pinky carmine and ruby maybe even, and just add your little strokes of color in there. Just getting some water on this, and then I am just smoothing out this. Then I want to use the rigger and get some of that green that we've mixed up already, and I'm just going to start adding a couple of dabs here and there, mixing a little bit more green so we can get some natural looking green happening within this background and it doesn't look entirely pink. That is what we're trying to do here, okay? And so it is perfectly damp at this point, so we're just going in and adding a couple of dabs to give us that nice gradient effect. Also, so it doesn't look entirely pink like I've mentioned previously. And we're going to kind of stagger it downward as we come down, just adding a couple here and there. It's giving us a nice blend. Okay, so you can see this area is darker in green because it's probably dried off, but that's okay because we want that transition of dark to light, and so if it's doing that naturally already, I guess it's all right. It's all right, right? Just adding some more at the top. Perfect. So you can see how we've got this really light transition happening. And I'm just adding some water to the rigger and I'm smoothing it out a bit so we can get a nice blend of the green in with the pink. Alright, so now we're ready to do our foreground petals or florals. And so once we add those in, we can go in using the same color we've mixed for those to add some detail in the back. And that's how we will continue and complete this painting. So we're going to start off by doing the foreground tulips first. I'm going to use the number 8 from my collection, and I am going to get a little bit of the carmine and I'm mixing that in here. I'm mixing it next to the yellow as well that I have from the skies. I'm going to get a little bit of the ruby. I really like this ruby from this collection. It's looking really nice. So we've got a couple of different variations of pink happening here. Let's get some of that Quin Rose as well. Mix it in here. And I want it to be all very diluted. And what I'm going to start by doing is putting in light strokes of these, and we're going to start creating loose tulips in the foreground first. And we're going to make sure that we have the rigger or the number 10 handy to smoothen out if we need to with water. So here's how I'm going to be doing these loose petals or tulips. We're going to start off by doing the outer bit. So I need to make sure my consistency is good. Let's do a bunch over here in the forefront. So I'm going to do a light stroke here, press down, another stroke here, another one here to complete that close or the cup. Then I'm taking this brush and I'm kind of going in and I'm smoothing out the edges because I want it to be loose like the rest of the scenery. And then collecting color from there, I'm just adding a couple of dots at the top to kind of reflect background petals almost for the tulip. And then you could use the same brush if you want to. I'm just going to go ahead and start creating other tulips, and exact same technique and method. I want things to be a little bit darker in some areas, lighter in some other areas. So I'm switching between the two of them to kind of add an additional hint of color. So like, let's just see over here, for instance, this really gives it a pop. If I mix some of that with some of the yellow using the same brush, I'm going to get a different tone altogether. So let's start creating some with a different tone. And then just going in and smoothing things out. So we've got these very different, like a cluster of these peonies happening. Oh, so not peonies, guys, sorry, tulips. And again, just continuing on with this technique. Making them nice and full. Take some of that ruby from the top and just kind of add hints of that into these. I'm going to go a lot lighter now for the rest of the tulips. And I'm really doing it, I'm really kind of dabbing away and making it very loose almost. it would help to even just kind of go in and add, I should just keep this brush down instead of getting other color on there. Probably, yeah, it would make sense to kind of dampen the area, just add a couple of strokes of these all over, because when you go in on a damp area, you get a nice blend, right? Which is how we got the sky. So doing something like that might really help get a nice loose effect. So I'm going to do the same thing here at the bottom for these tulips. And what would also help is if you just take your number 8, get some color directly from here and just add a hint. Okay, so I did get some dark hues on this. So let's get some of that carmine and add it to the center. And this will kind of help some of them stand out, whether it's the petals or the actual flower itself. Get some of the red. Do that there. And you're just kind of helping it originate and come to its own. So I don't want all of them to be looking like dark or of the same hue. So I am going to go in and get some other hues in there. So pretty much the same colors we've been using all along. I'm just kind of going in and creating these little bowl shaped florals. Try and leave some white space where you can, if you can. That would be helpful. If not, that's okay. You can always try this again. I think it's a lot of hit or miss, really, when it comes to doing something on such a random tone. Almost like an impressionistic style. So I'm mixing some of that orange in with this pink because I want the rest of it to be a little more orangey compared to all the pink that we have going on. So I want some nice orange hues. And I'm just going to smoothen things out here. So again, if these look like they're just background fading bunches, that's fine, because what we'll do is we'll actually go in and add more detail to some of these. And some of these might not need as much detail. But I'm literally just kind of going in, adding some color, taking out some color, filling up the space as best as I can. And trying to add in some detail wherever I can before things kind of stop getting as that effect that we want. So at this point I'll go in with the rigger, and we're going to get in some of the olive green. And I am going to use the olive green to add some strokes in here. So just like that. Because this area is nice and damp, we can get some beautiful flares of color maybe. Well, this area was. This area is a little bit damp, so yeah, I'm getting some strokes here. And using the rigger, again, see, this is why I really like the rigger, because it's kind of giving me these thin strokes. And while it is like blending in with these tulips, it's giving it some good room between its sisters and brothers off to the side. And I'm just going to add some strokes in just like water, like just water strokes here at the bottom, and you'll see why. Because now we're going to go in with another green, which is the chromium oxide green, which is what we used previously. And I want to add some of that green in there. And you can see how it's giving us a blend because the areas are damp. So there's a little bit of layering and making sure that you've got all these colors in there nicely so that it looks harmonious, not flat, and kind of stands out. So I'm using the rigger again, very loosely painting these in, getting some more of that chromium oxide, adding a little bit here and there so that it looks, it's filling up space. So you can see this, if you ever wondered about loose style of painting, this is really loose, guys. And we're relying heavily on the colors to kind of really make this stand out. So now the next thing we're going to do is add a darker green because we're not done yet. So we're getting green. That's what this is. This is like my favorite color. You guys know I keep saying this in so many of my videos. It's my favorite green to use. And so this we'll use this to kind of add shadowy effects here and there. And I love that this paper is still pretty damp, so we're getting these effects without having to do too much. Fabulous. Because yeah, it's a hit or miss when it comes to things like this, because you need to make sure that it's damp enough and you're able to get a nice enough cauliflower, I think it's called cauliflower effect, and just have things pop out some more, because the light and dark of the colors really do help elevate and bring things to the forefront, send things to the background, that sort of thing. So I'm just kind of adding most of the dark at the bottom. And if you want to add visual, like very clear stems to some of the flowers, the tulips, absolutely go ahead and do that. Because I have so many strokes, I've kind of lost that already, but you can totally do that. I am just now blending in all this green at the bottom, kind of leaving some areas dark, and then adding little grass strands, or just greenery really, if you And so now we're pretty much done the foreground bit. We're going to go ahead and add some detail to the background. Alright, so now for this bit, what we're going to be doing is we're dominantly using the rigger, and we're using the rest of the remaining colors that we've got on our palette, and we're just going to take all these colors, kind of add details off in the background. So I'm using some of the orangey bit that we have, then I'm taking some of the pink, and I'm just dabbing away, getting in some of that violet that we had in there too. And this is almost like, yeah, very much an impressionistic style. Takes a lot of dabbing, a lot of different colors. To create the whole thing. So you know what, like I mentioned, all I'm doing is just adding these dabs and kind of going all around. And the dabs are just going to get mildly bigger and darker when we get closer to the front. So like maybe around this area. So let's just finish this background dabbing, and then we're going to finish the foreground dabbing really quickly. Just getting more color. Dampening all of this area. Now I'm getting some of that green. Actually, I'm going to get some of the yellowy green in here. And very sporadic, really, because I don't want it to be too overpowering, the green. At least not in the background. I think I want more of the pinky color than the green. So I think I'll leave some of the green for like some of the sides and some areas here and there. But we're not doing what we did with the pink, having it all over, that is. So very small dots of it. And now as we get to the front, we'll just add a little bit more, or just like darker. And so finally, I think we're ready to start some mid-level tulips. And for that, we're going to get a little bit more color. Using the rigger, I'm going to get a little bit more of the Quin Rose, Ruby, and then just start doing some dabs. But this time I'm going to make these like actual little tulips in the background. So I'm just creating these tiny little cup-shaped things sporadically here and there. Mixing in the color so we've got a good variation of different kinds. Some can be close together, some can be far away. You're just kind of going, some can be like literally like just dots that you're adding in, but majority of them, at least for this layer, try and make them like little cups. And then where the areas of blades of grass or the tulip leaves are, whatever you want to call them, you can just kind of add dots instead of creating full looking flowers. And now we got to go back in and add some green. So just finishing my dabbing really quickly before we move on to adding the green. So you see, I am loving the rigger, and I've done everything using the ZenART brush collection. This kind of, I guess there was extra water. It's pooling up weird. Alright, so green. So for green, we are going to use some of the chrome oxide. Getting some of that, just mixing it into this area here. I think chrome oxide should be good enough because we've got some green chrome oxide and then the lighter green happening here. So then it would be a nice gradual blend. But let's just try it and see. So again, we can add little linear lines indicating stems to some of our little blooms. Maybe you want to add some in the background too, I don't know. So just like that. And then once we have that, just lightly, we want shorter looking leaves or greenery, grass effect, whatever you want to call it, happening here. So I'm trying to be very controlled, and yeah, and so you're pretty much just repeating this throughout. In and around the flowers. You know, I'll get a little bit of the green and mix it in just to get a tad bit of a darker green happening, just peeking out from here and there in different areas. I think that really does make things stand out, especially when you have a stark difference in tonal opacity. And I think we are almost done. I don't think we really need to add any more. We've gotten a good enough variety of color. I just got a splash of water on there, so I'm just dabbing that off. Yeah, so I think this is pretty much it. I think one last thing that I would do is probably just make some of these pop a little more, or maybe not. I actually kind of really like how it's blending in with like the ones to the side are kind of blending in, and then you've got this nice blend happening in the background. Yeah. Oh, actually, yes, there is one more thing, forgot. So we're mixing in some of that purple with the green that we have left over, and we're going to the background. And we are enhancing the background so it pops a bit more, and just adding a couple of dabs to kind of indicate maybe these are trees or shrubbery on the foreground of that layer that we previously did. Just getting that nice like greeny purple. I love how it transitions with the rest of this. It's like, it's not a brown, but it's like a pretty color, and they kind of just, there's harmony. And I think that's what majority of the paintings really need, like especially when it's loose on this level where it's like completely loose. There's a lot of like impressionistic style happening, and you really want it to kind of pop. So you make it pop by making sure that the colors are harmonious and are pleasing to the eye. All right, so there we go. Massive difference, right? Like it just makes it stand out so much more. So that's it. Let me know in the comments what you guys thought, and guys, if you enjoyed this video, please do consider liking, subscribing to the channel, as I put out a lot of videos, watercolor videos and some Procreate videos on a weekly basis. So check that out. Follow me on Instagram and Facebook. My @ is HelloClarisseG, and please do tag me in your work. Send me your work. I would love to see it. Show me how beautiful or how much better you can do than me, because I know some of you totally can, and I love it. I love seeing your work. So tag me, guys, and thanks so much for watching. We'll chat soon. Bye.